Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Corey with Corey Stanton Music. Today I'm going to teach you guys how I mix bass. This is the second part to my mixing videos. My last video was with drums. I showed you guys how to add compression, EQ, effects, and parallel compression. You're going to want to go check that video out. Well, let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's see what we got here. Here's the full mix. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is play the bass and the drums. We're going to go ahead and start over. I'm going to turn all these plugins off. I'm going to take this bass track and this bass track, and I'm going to create a bus. And then I'm going to name this bus bass. I'm going to move this. And then I'm going to add a stereo bus compressor. I'm going to move that to the attack to 30. I'm going to set the release to 1. The ratio is at 4. And I'm going to take this makeup gain and turn that down to 0. And then I'm going to turn that off for now. And we're going to start with this, this first bass guitar. So the way that we recorded this bass is we just did a direct signal straight from the bass into the interface. And this is what that sounds like. Okay, so I'm going to add my first compressor. And just like drums and vocals, you're going to compress the bass guitar pretty hard, actually. So here's the first compressor. And I focus the spikes, the hardest attacks that he does on his bass, about -10. Okay, and then I do my makeup gain up to about -6. And then I'm going to pull up my next compressor. And I got that in between -10 and -5. Let's go ahead and compress this a little bit harder. There we go. And then my makeup gain, I'm going to make it about -6. So let's go ahead and get that a little bit louder. Okay. I got the attack at about 3 and then the release about 6. Okay. And then I pull up my EQ. And I got my first boost at about 2.5. And let me show you what that sounds like. I'll bring it down to 0. And then I have my next boost at 1K. I'm gonna bring that down. And then boost it. Now go too far, right? And then bring it back to where you like it. sounds pretty good to me. So, and then my my compressor for the channel strip is at 4.1, and the release as fast as it'll go, and the attack is on just normal attack. And then my threshold, I turned it up to about -6 right here on this, excuse me, right about there. That's good right there. And then that's good for that. And then I got this plugin that I downloaded for free, actually. Modern Music Solutions. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn that one on. Add some grit to it. Just add some drive, a little bit of stank to it. Now I want my I want this meter to be about -6, so I'm running this thing a little bit hot. So let's go ahead and turn this down a little bit. Okay. And then the last plugin that I set up is my EQ, Pro EQ. And I gave it a low cut at 50, and then I gave it a boost at 67.5 hertz. That's just where I found that I liked the low end. I'm gonna turn that off and turn it back on so you can hear it. So it gives it a nice low touch to it. And then let me play this with the drums. Don't mix in solo. That's just, you have no idea what you're doing as far as the how it's gonna sound in the mix. So here's the drums. So I listen to that, and I'm realizing that the bass just needs a little more. So what I did is I duplicated this bass track, so it's the same exact track duplicated. Let me go ahead and solo out the original one. So we're back to ground zero. I bring in my first compressor. And then I bring in my second compressor. I ended up bringing in Dark Glass. It's a Neural DSP plugin. So I went through a couple of different presets, and I ended up finding one that I liked. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on so you can hear it. So it's got some fuzz in there, and I thought that sounded pretty cool. Let me go back to this pedal. I'm gonna turn this off, and turn this off, and turn this off. Okay, so messing around with all this stuff, I was looking for a thicker and more full sound. So, man, you can just go hog wild on this pedal. I mean, there's so much stuff you can do. I can see that the bass is turned all the way up. This is a preset that I found, and all I wanted to do was just add more to it and make it heavier sounding. So, up here, I added another compressor. And then I was like, man, let me get a little bit of fuzz on there. Hear what that sounds like. And I was like, that sounds pretty good. But this is what I was looking for when I wanted to duplicate the track, is this octaver. And what this is doing is it's giving it a lower octave, so where it almost sounds like a power chord. And I was like, okay, that sounds pretty good. I better go in here and do the 50 hertz cut that I do on all of my tracks. See all this stuff down here below? That is just a ton of energy, and you can't even really hear it, but it's going to make your track muddy. So that's with it cut out. So you can hear that fuzz in there. You can hear that octaver in there, right? And then add the first bass track that I mixed. So I'm using this first track as clarity and an attack. And I was like, man, that's when I decided to bring in another bass track and make it more full sounding. And then let me show you what that sounds like with the drums. And I'm gonna A-B the second track. So it makes it fuller, and I thought that sounded really good with all of the tracks. I'm gonna A-B that second track again. See, it sounds good, but I just wanted it much thicker. Okay, so now that I got the bass sounding the way that I want it to, I'm gonna go ahead and go to the bass bus, and I'm gonna solo it out so you can hear it. I got it set at 30 for the attack, 1 for the release, 4.1 for the ratio, and then now I'm gonna focus in on the threshold. I think I turned the makeup down all the way. Turn the makeup down to 0, and then just bring this thing in the threshold. Right in between, you know, about 2, 2.5, 3. I mean, it's gonna bounce around, so. Basically, the reason why I'm using that is to marry these two bass parts and glue them together a little better. So that's how I mix bass. If you like my content, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment if you have any questions. Stick around, I got more videos coming. I'm gonna show you guys how I mix the rest of the tracks to this song, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.